Let's mark the quiz. Oh, we have to have my favorite student, good old Anne. Solve as indicated. Marks will be given for partial solutions, so show your work. Cannonball is dropped. Okay, that tells me something from a very high cliff. Hits the ground 14.5 seconds later. Now, in your homework, because I've thrown a lot of these at you, Sasha, you may be getting good enough that you don't always have to list all your data. You may already be able to see what equation to go to. You may be tempted to go straight to your calculator, and honestly, in your homework, I'm fine with that. On a test or a quiz, gee, I'll still be very, very careful. So how high is the cliff? I would say to myself, they want me to find a D. I know A is negative 9.8. I know T is 14.5. And because we're dropped, I know VI is 0. So I can use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, although I really didn't even need to write the VI. And it's going to be 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 14.5 squared. 14.5 seconds of free fall is a pretty long time. It's going to be a fairly high cliff. You can imagine counting 14 seconds before something hits the ground. You're up pretty high. So I'm expecting a big answer. 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 14.5 squared. Why did I get a negative answer? This equation doesn't find a distance. What does it really find? I'm looking for another word that begins with a D. It finds a displacement. And since I did end up below from where I started, it's saying, look, you've lost height. You've lost distance. So I'm not going to freak out. I say, hey, I'm pretty good with that. So I'm going to go, technically, I guess I should go to 3 sig figs. So I'm going to go negative 1,030 meters. If you didn't put the negative, because I said how high, and height's a scalar, I'm fine with that as well. If you have that, this will give you 2 out of 2. Otherwise, I would go something like this. I would give you 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. B says, what is the impact velocity? I think that's asking me to find V final. It's not 0. V final would be 0 after I hit the ground once this question is done and over, but that's not what this question is asking. I think I'm going to go with VF equals VI plus AT. You could also use your distance answer from number 2, from A, and go VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD, but why use an answer to find an answer if I don't need to? I will do that once in a while if it's way less work, because I'm lazy, but here, this is the easiest equation. It's going to be 0 plus. I really didn't even need to write the 0 plus. In fact, you know what? I'm going to cross out the VI and just go negative 9.8 times 14.5. When I hit the ground, am I traveling upwards or downwards? I should get a negative velocity then. Negative 9.8 times 14.5. And I get negative, I'm going to write 142 meters per second. If you went to 142.1, negative 142.1, I'm fine with that. Same as before, 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the answer. Sorry, numbers, half mark for the answer. What is the velocity of the cannonball after 6.4 seconds? We've just changed the question, so Kiana, I'm going to re-list my data. I'm going to say, okay, they still want me to find a V final. V initial is still 0, A is still negative 9.8, but this time T is 6.4. You know what? It's going to be the same equation, VI plus AT, although I didn't even need to write the VI. It's going to be negative 9.8 times 6.4, still going down. Negative 62.7 meters per second. Did I get the units right on the previous one? Yeah, I did. Same as before, Sarah. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. What I want you to again realize, Elliot, is I'm not that concerned about the answer. I'll give you half the marks just for the process. If you can identify how we would find this thing, there you go. How far has the ball fallen after 8 seconds? Now they want me to find a D. VI is still 0. A is still negative 9.8. This time T is 8 seconds. it's going to be d equals 0.5 at squared, or a half at squared. Didn't bother writing the VIT this time. It's going to be 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 8 squared. Can I do that one in my head? 8 squared is 64. Half of that is 32. Negative 9.8 times 2 is negative 19.6 times 2 is negative 39.4 times 2. I'm losing track of the 2's. I can almost do it in my head. Do you get negative 314? Negative 313.6. I would take that. But is that right? Yes? I'll go to 3 sig figs and at least be 3 sig fig consistent. Same as before, Zach. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. What else can I do? Well, instead of having an initial velocity of 0, dropping it, I can launch it. I can launch it up. If I launch it down, I would just make that 36 negative. Here, though, up positive. How long does it take for the ball to reach its maximum height? Okay. I know that, well, they want me to find a time. I know VI is 36. We're in free fall. I know A is negative 9.8. What else do I know about maximum height at the top? Yep. So I can use T equals VF minus VI over A. Yeah, I went straight to the equation. I can use 0 minus 36 all over negative 9.8. I caught that, but you said it too. 3.67 seconds? I guess technically 3.7 seconds if I go to 2 sig figs, which I really should in this question, but I'm not going to be that fussy. So I'll write 3.7 seconds. That gets you 2 out of 2. Otherwise, 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the answer, and half mark for the numbers. What's the maximum height? We're still at the top, so Alec, I'm just going to look at my data in part A. I'm not going to rewrite everything. You could if you wanted to. I think I can go D equals VIT plus a half AT square. Oh, wait a minute. Then I'm using my time value. I don't want to. You know what? I think I can go D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. That's probably what I would choose to do, because that way, Nick, I'm using stuff they gave me to find D. I wouldn't mark you wrong if you used T and if you went D equals VIT plus a half AT squared, and you would get the same answer no matter what. The only thing I would say, though, Matt, is I would not use the 3.7. I would use my answer button for the T. So I would use the 3.6734693888 ... whatever the heck it all is. Anyways, here it's going to be 0 squared minus 36 squared all over 2 times negative 9.8. Again, make sure you know how to type these complicated fractions into your calculator. 0 squared minus 36 squared all over bracket 2 times negative 9.8. Do you get 66.1? I'll go 66 to 2 sig figs. Is that right? People nodding? Okay. 1 mark, half mark, half mark. If you use D equals VIT plus a half A. By the way, I guess you could also have used D equals 0.5 bracket VI plus VF times T, and you'd also get the same answer. Yeah?
I used my time value, and I used 3.7 instead of the actual answer. I got 66.119.
So you've introduced error. Again, I would never use a rounded off value to find another value if I can avoid it. So I'm going to give you 1.5 out of 2. What is the impact velocity? Oh, V final equals negative 36 meters per second. By the way, how many marks, Pierce, was this question worth? That's my way of saying you can probably do this either in your head or with no calculation, which, you know, isn't good physics, but good test writing, right? How long is the ball in the air for? There's 2 ways I can find this. I can take my answer from A and times it by 2. this was my answer from A, and I would not use the 3.7 here. I would and times it by 2, and I get 7.3469. I'll write 7.3 seconds. Or you could go like this. V initial is 36. V final is negative 36. A is negative 9.8. You could go T equals VF minus VI over A, negative 36 minus 36 over negative 9.8. And let's see if I get exactly the same pattern of decimals. If I go negative 36 minus 36 divided by negative 9.8, and lo and behold, I get exactly the same thing. I also get 7.3 seconds. I don't care which method you used. I might use the second method just to avoid using an answer to find an answer, but having said that, I'm always pretty confident when I find answers, and I really don't have a problem using them to find something else. So 2 marks for that, or 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Zach, how many marks is E worth? Probably means I can do it in my head. What is the displacement of the ball once it hits the ground? Because how high was it when it started? 0. How high was it when it finished? 0. What's its change in position? Now, the total distance that it traveled would be 66 times 2. It would be 66 meters up, 66 meters down. That's the total distance that it's traveled. Displacement, 0. Turn the page. Ball is thrown straight up from a cliff at 24 meters per second, hits the ground at the base of the cliff after 12 seconds. How high is the cliff? Looks like they want me to find a displacement. VI is 24. A is negative 9.8. T equals 12. So I'm going to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. And here the VI isn't going to cancel. It's going to be 24 times 12 plus 0.5 negative 9.8 12 squared. It's going to be 24 times 12 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 12 squared. Did I type that in right? I think so. Oh, yeah, negative. I'm ending up below from where I started. Do you get negative 418? No? Yes? Yeah? And I'll go to 3 sig figs. Again, if you made that positive in your final answer, because height's technically a scalar, I'm also good with that as well. In fact, I'd almost prefer that. Anyways, 1 mark, half mark, half mark. What's the maximum height of the ball? Alec, how many marks is this one worth?
3.
Why would it be 3? I bet you there's an extra step. Yeah? You're cluing in how I kind of set things up? I'm not going to try and... I'm never going to give you a 1-mark question that's a lot of work unless it's a really nasty bonus. And I'll probably say, bonus question. I'll make a bonus worth 1 mark even though it's like 5 marks worth of work because bonus should be a nasty, really got to work. Okay. Maximum height of the ball. Isn't it 418? Oh, no. That's how far it fell from the cliff. I need to find how high it went from the cliff. So I'm going to want a D equals question mark. I know that VI was 24. A was negative 9.8. And for maximum height, I know that's 0. So I can go D equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2A. Going to be 0 squared minus 24 squared all over 2 times negative 9.8. It's going to be 0 squared minus 24 squared all over 2 times negative 9.8. Oh, type that in wrong. Got to put the bottom in brackets, otherwise I'd get the wrong answer. And I get 29.387. I'll write 29.4 meters. Why is that not how high the ball went? Yeah. what was it, 417.6 plus, you know what, here I won't call it negative anymore because now it's a height, 29.4. 29.4 plus 417.6, 447. That gets you 3 marks. So I would go like this: 1 mark for that, half mark for the numbers, half mark if you stopped at 29.4, and then 1 mark for adding the 417.6 to it. Last little bit. A ball is launched straight up from the edge of a 92-meter high cliff with an initial velocity of 24 meters per second, and it wants me to find V final. It says careful, so I'll be careful. Well, VI is 24. A is negative 9.8. D is 92. I guess I can go VF squared. I've made a mistake, by the way. I've made a mistake on purpose just to show you how if you make the mistake, you can catch it. So I think I'm going to go VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. Josh, how to get rid of a squared? Okay, so I would do this, and I would go the square root of 24 squared plus 2 negative 9.8 times 92. I would type everything inside the square root, 24 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times 92 equals, and I go square root. And why am I getting an error? What's the mistake that I've made? Why did I get a negative? This is why it has to be a displacement, because really listing the data that I have here, I've told the universe I was falling down and ended above from where I started. That's not how things work. Negative. Negative. That's called resonance, by the way. There's a physical explanation for that, too, that noise. Negative. And now I get a positive inside my square root, and I go square root, answer button, and I get 48.8. Which is also wrong. Why?
Because it should be a negative?
It's going down, and I have to insert the negative because my calculator doesn't know that I want the negative square root of that answer, not the positive. I don't want the principal root. I want the other one that we always forget about. Okay? So if you missed the negative in your final answer, that'll cost you a half mark. This would be 1 mark, half mark, half mark. By the way, technically I should have said negative 49. I should have gone to 2 sig figs because of the 92 and the 24. I just kept that there, though, so you could see everything was put together. You had a question, or did I answer it?
What did you get before you square root it?
2,379.2. Okay? So if I was marking yours, if you got that part wrong, but you did square root it, I would give you 1.5. Oh, as long as you had a negative in front of your velocity. Okay? And then it's your job to try and figure out where you zigged, whether it was a typo or, I'm noticing, for example, a lot of people are still typing stuff like this. If they want to go, as an example, V final squared divided by 2A, because V initial is 0, I'm still seeing a lot of people go, V final is 8 squared divided by 2 times negative 9.8, and they're forgetting that they have to put the bottom in brackets because this will multiply by negative 9.8. It won't divide by negative 9.8. So this is what I've gone on my calculator rant a bunch of times. Yes, I hope. Hopefully I've finally convinced all of you. How long until it hits the ground? You can do this 2 ways. Method 1 is to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared and solve with the quadratic formula. Method 2 go T equals VF minus VI over A. I have VF sitting right here. I have VI and I have A listed up there. It's going to be VF negative 48.8 minus 24 all over negative 9.8. Except I'm not going to use 48.8. I'm going to use my answer button, bracket. Oh, but I need to make it negative, so I'm going to go negative answer button. There's negative 48.77704378 minus 24 divided by negative 9.8. And I get a time of 7.4 seconds. Now, if you got this answer wrong, which you did, but you went that answer, minus 24 divided by negative 9.8, I will give you 2 out of 2 for this, even though it's the wrong answer. You did it totally right. You just started with the wrong data. And that's how I will almost always, I think always, if I can, mark your tests. What that means, Alec, is let's suppose you couldn't get part A. You blanked. I can't remember how to find V final, but you knew if you knew V final, you could find time. Write me a note on the test underneath part B, say, Mr. Dewick, I can't find V final. I'm going to assume V final is negative 65 meters per second, and I'll show you I can find time. And I would give you, I would get my calculator out, I would crunch the numbers, I would give you 2 out of 2 for this. Okay? So don't leave stuff blank. That's my message. Can you give yourself, those of you that did the quiz, a lovely, same as before, by the way. I forgot to give you my marks breakdown, didn't I? 1 mark, half mark, half mark. Give yourself a lovely score out of 25, please. So your homework to work on, first of all, is this take-home quiz, which has everything on it. If you want a good summary of what your test is going to look like, it'll be this, except I'll also throw a few multiple choice questions. Rick's not on his phone or anything foolish. He's paying attention. Okay. Study guide is the second thing. I've put the answers next to each question. I'm going to tell you how I did my answer key. I didn't write anything. I had my formula sheet right there. I had my calculator, and I tried doing everything showing no work. I have no problem, Matt, if you are feeling comfortable and confident, if you can look at these questions, even the ones that are word problems, and if you think, oh, I can figure out what they gave me, I can figure out which equation to use in my head, I can rewrite the equation in my head, I can go straight to my calculator, I can type everything in properly, I can hit equals, and that number showed up on my calculator. If you can do that, Kiana, without writing anything as a study guide, I think that's good studying. I would never do it that way on a test. But in other words, if you really want to push yourself, Elliot, and see, okay, how good am I on this? I will accept just answers written. Now, there's always one kid who hands this in with only writing the answers because they copied the answers, and then they say, yeah, Mr. Dewick, I aced this, and then they get 20% on the test. Well, I know that kid's full of it, right? But if you feel comfortable enough, like, as an example, looking at number 9 here, they want the height, dropped. I know VI is 0. I know G, negative 9.8. I know T. If you feel like, oh, I can rewrite the equation, I can do everything I can, and go straight to my calculator, Josh, go ahead. Okay. Just don't ever do that on a test or a quiz. Show your steps on a test or a quiz so I can give you the marks. Is that all right? Get where we're coming from? Ladies and gentlemen, you have the rest of class to work on this.